Hey there, and welcome to another edition of Just a Thought. And this morning, I have just been reflecting on a dream that I had, and it's actually a theme that I've been having for a little while, and the dream kind of just gave me a thought, and so I thought I would share it here with you, and hopefully engage thoughts of your own and inspire some conversation around this idea of what I'm going to call recovering ancient tools. And I guess first I will share the dream. So not as important that it was a longer dream, but those of you who may not know about me, that I'm a dreamer. I dream. We're all dreamers, but I have a lot of dreams. In these dreams, there are a lot of significant dreams that I write down pretty much every night. And often I have more dreams than I can even fully write down and do anything with. But some I'll remember, and some, if I don't write it down, they're gone forever after I process. So I do my best to write down the dreams when I wake up, as many as I can remember, and some of them it's just highlights, some of them I'm able to write the whole thing. Others I might just be processing when I wake up, but by the time I go to write them down, they're gone. But anyway, I dream a lot, and in these dreams there's usually themes and typically things I can pull out, and even if I don't understand the whole dream or the context of it, I might be able to pull out a few items. And so in last night's dream, specifically, there was just, I was able to write the whole dream down, but as I was thinking about it later this morning, it drew out three elements from it. And that's what I want to talk about. So in this part of the dream, I go down to a warehouse for a job that I'm working at a job, and a gentleman tells me that they've cleaned out the warehouse. They wanted to know about these tools that they found in the warehouse and wanted to know if they could sell them. And so when I went down to the warehouse with this gentleman, I found in a corner was set up a shelf, but a large shelf, kind of a large square shelf that was tilted it wasn't like a shelf that was, you put books on, it was tilted so you could see the elements, and there was this big area, and it was covered in spider webs and dust, and on that platform shelf, there was a bunch of different tools, but the three that I picked out distinctly was a hammer, an old hammer, an old rake that doesn't even look like a rake we use today. It was kind of a, typical rakes have like a fan-like raking thing, metal rake, claws that go into a stick. This one had less of them, and it was longer. I don't know what you call it, but the forks or the tongs, I don't know what you call those, but they were long, and there was fewer of them in a V-shaped instead of a wider shape. It was kind of a V-shaped on a stick rake, and in a huge wooden barrel. And I told in the dream, I told the gentleman, no, these were from my I said these were from my dad's great grandfather, and these cannot be touched. Then we went over to another shelf where there's a bunch of other tools that had been dropped off there, and one item I picked out was kind of a plastic tool of some sort, and I said, all these, you can do whatever you want. If you can sell them, make money, great. Just have it. I don't care about those. But these antique would be a better word, tools, can't touch. And that's, actually got, this morning as I was thinking about that part of the dream, I was like, that's interesting that these antique really inherited tools were just left in this warehouse, and the warehouse was in kind of a rubble state, and they cleaned it up and they actually put it aside on that, but you could tell it hasn't been used. There was spider webs all over it, dust covering it. It hadn't been used in a long time. And it reminded me of kind of this process over the last couple of years that my wife and I have been on in our prayer journey, and specifically praying for the treasures from from generations past, treasures that had been unclaimed, that were available to our ancestors, but had just been unclaimed. And the Lord had shown me a picture, a vision really. It wasn't a dream, it was more of a vision of these treasure chests along this road. And the road represented generations, and each generation had treasures that had been stored up and that had been given to them as either gifts or as trophies, spoils from victories that they had won in their lives. Real rewards, and these great treasures that had been unclaimed. And the Lord was showing me this because he says it's time to claim these ancient treasures, these treasures that were meant for that those had gone before us in my line, and also I believe in my wife's line, and I believe in all our lineages. There's potential that generations gone back did not realize that they had treasures, spoils from victories, or rewards for overcoming in different circumstances, or just gifts from the Father that were laid unclaimed, and they're still to this day unclaimed. And he showed me these things to pray them in, because I believe this is a time where we do need those treasures, the treasures that had been laid up from generations past. So those, I think they're material, I think they're spiritual. And so this morning I was thinking about that in connection with these inherited antiques. And it was interesting, it was my dad that had brought them to the warehouse, because I said, oh yeah, my dad brought those things. And so it has to do with generation, passed down. And in the context, I was thinking about what are the gifts that I have, spiritual gifts, natural gifts, or things. What are some of those gifts that I have in me that are inherited, that I could see in different family members, or different, either my parents or generations past? And I know for one, most of us in my family are runners. And all of us at some point have done either cross country or long distance running. And I know that's something that my dad was into, and that was something I know is a passed down, something from my dad to our family, is the love for running. And I have that. I love endurance running. I love to jog. It's just one of my first thing I do in the morning. I get up and go on a jog, and that's start off my quiet time. And a lot of times it's worship, it's intercession, it's a lot of different things, but it's that time during jogging. I get that from my dad. So that's one of these things that's been passed down. I know that the gift of intercession. I know my grandparents were great intercessors, and I believe their parents as well. And my parents are also intercessors, but that's something that's in me. It's a gift, and it's a something I use in my life as an intercessor, as one who prays the heart of the Father into things of the things in my family, things in my life, or in other people's lives. And so that's a gift. That's something passed down. Worship. I know that I'm a worshiper, and worship is another thing that's been passed down. So as I was looking at these different either spiritual gifts or just natural manifestations of things that have been passed down, I believe that those are part of that treasure that I saw, passed down. I believe also this dream speaks of tools, these ancient tools that have to do with the same thing, things that are from generations past that are for now, and there's been a revealing of it, and I can see that it hasn't been used. It's caught, if it's something dust and spider webs covering it, it means it hasn't been used in a long time. And so I was thinking of these three elements. So there was a hammer, a rake, and a barrel. And let me just pull up, see if I can find it here. I put a few notes here. First of all, when I was thinking of this as far as ancient, look at the certain scriptures about, ancient things. The first one that comes to my mind is Psalms 24, 7 through 9, but 24:7 in particular is, "Lift up your heads, O gates, and be lifted up, you ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in." And we think of this ancient door, these gates and these doors that need to be lifted up for the King of glory to arrive, to come through. So in this case, it's an ancient, something established of old, that it's time to be lifted up in order for for the King of glory to come in this context. Another thing is Proverbs 22:28 says, "Do not remove the ancient landmarks," and the Amplified says, "at the boundary of the property." So an ancient landmark is actually boundaries that are land property divisions, property boundaries. It says, "Do not remove the ancient landmarks which your fathers have set." So again, it's actually both of these scriptures are talking about something established of old, that one is to be lifted up, that the King of glory may come in. The other one is the set, that is to be honored and respected, right? There's something about things that are in our generations lines past that we don't remove because they were set up of old, and they have a purpose and a point. There's other things that might be, you might have heard of generational curses or things that need to be broken off. Things, if alcoholism runs in your family, there's something that needs to be broken off. Divorce in your family, broken off. Some of these things that are, have been shackles on your generation line, and maybe things that we've suffered with or struggled with, that we are going to be the generation that breaks that chain, so that all for 100 generations to come are not bound by that. They're bound by a blessing and not by a curse, so to speak. So anyway, back to these three tools. So I was thinking, what are the uses of these tools? Now, it really did happen that there was a hammer that was actually from my mom's side. I would believe it was her great-granddad. Either her granddad or her great-granddad. I don't remember if it was my great-granddad or her great-granddad. But anyway, it probably was my great-granddad. So her granddad had given her, after he passed, she had gotten this old hammer. Didn't look like a hammer today. It was just small little nub at the top for pounding something, and very small and delicate, fragile. So very delicate tool. It wasn't like a big hammer, but that actually really happened. And and that was on my wall. There was a few things that my mom just hung on the wall because it was really kind of a cool relic. And I remember when I was maybe 8, I took that hammer down because I was my brother and I were working on out in our backyard. We were uprooting a tree, because what else do you do when you're 8? You don't have the internet at that time. You just uproot a tree. Anyway, we had found a hole in a tree, and we just kept digging, and then eventually that tree had come down. But in the process, I had taken that. I needed a tool, so I found that tool, and I was, hammering at the root, I think, and it broke. I actually broke this this relic, ancient hammer, inheritance. It's kind of sad story, but anyway, that dream reminded me, when I saw that hammer, reminded me of that. So what is a hammer used for? Well, I was thinking, use a hammer to build, right? A hammer is used to build. It also breaks things. And I saw the scripture, Jeremiah 23:29. It says, "Is not my word like fire, declares the Lord, and like a hammer that breaks the rock in pieces?" And then also it's used to mold and to craft things. In Isaiah 41:7, the craftsman strengthens the goldsmith. and he who smooths with the hammer, him who strikes the anvil, saying of the soldiering, it is good, and they strengthen it with nails so that it cannot be moved. So, hammer is used to break things. It can shape things, and a goldsmith uses a hammer to kind of hammer things into place when they're hot, and then also to build things up. And then I think of the rake. The rake is used to gather, right? It can clean, but it also gathers. You think of the most typical use here in the United States is gathering leaves, right? You rake the leaves. But many different things. It's used to collect things and to gather. And then a barrel. What's a barrel used for? A barrel used to store things, whether it's, if you're in the wine industry, you put wine in barrels, whiskey and spirits of that sort you put in barrels, and they age in these barrels. But also, in 1 Kings chapter 17, it talks about, Elijah going to, I believe it's the widow, and he asks what she has, and she says, I just have a handful of meal in a barrel. And then it goes on, he says, well, the barrel is not going to go to waste. Everything in there is not going to spoil, and it didn't. But it's used to store. It can store grain and all kinds of things. So these three elements of building, gathering, and storing. And I just was thinking, isn't that really a prophetic symbol of what the times that we're living in right now? This is a time to build. This is a time to gather, and this is a time to store up. And you think of, in Joseph, the story, the dream Pharaoh had was about these 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine. And Joseph's interpretation was using the years of plenty to store up that can be used during the time of famine. And that's exactly what happened. And anyway, it's this thought of, we have these tools given to us, inherited from generations past. Again, they can be material, they can be spiritual, whatever. I think it's kind of both, really. And asking the Father, what are the tools that I have? What are the things that have been passed along? And what are the treasures that have been stored up, that have been unclaimed, that I want to claim and pray into, Lord, that none of the treasures that have from the generations past gets left any longer, that it be actually become the resource for my generation and for 100 generations to come. Because I believe each generation has its rewards and gets treasure from the Father of victories that He's won in our lives, things that we've overcome, just because the nature of Jesus, He's generous. He gives us good things. And so there's things that He gives to every generation. But whether they are claimed, picked up, and used for kingdom building, and for resources for ourselves and for our children's children, et cetera, is the question. And I do not want to be the generation that leaves something unclaimed that is intended for our family line and for many. That which is giftings and treasures in our family line should be a blessing for everyone who we come in contact with. And I think that treasure and these tools all speak to utilizing the things that are in our what's in our hands and what needs to be reclaimed or claimed from generations past. And some of that, there's a requirement. It got to be dusted off. It got to be cleaned up. It's got to be, taken hold of and then put to use and know what the use is. So some of that is praying into, Lord, how do I use these tools as you reveal it to me? I went to a school of intercession because I had a gift of intercession handed down, and I wanted to learn about that. The gift of prophecy, I think, is something that's been in my family as well. And again, going to school for that, to train up and to learn more about how to use these tools. And then natural, if, we were, all of my siblings at one point all did track and field or cross country, and my kids as well. They've done cross country to train up in how to use this gift of a love for running. And that's something that's generational. So all these things, how do you, one, identify these tools and these treasures, and then how do you put them to work, train up how to use them, dust them off, get them into action, and then let them become a wealth and a resource for not only for myself, my family, but also for future generations and everyone that comes in contact with us. My prayer for all of us is that all these ancient treasures and these ancient tools passed down that have laid dormant become revealed and then put to use, so that everyone around us, every single person we come in contact, is blessed by these tools, by this wealth, by these treasures, by these tools that are part of my family line, our family lines collectively and individually. So I hope that makes sense, but that was my thought for today is it's time to reclaim those ancient treasures and those ancient tools and put them to work for such a time as this, because we're in a season of building, a season of gathering, and a season of storing up for what's to come. So anyway, bless you. Have a great day. I will see you next time on Just a Thought.